Our next presenter is Jeff Johnson, who is presenting on his capstone entitled Acu-Resonance Therapy and the 5 Tones of the Living Truth, Applications in Chinese Medicine. Jeff's chair is Ken Blavatsky, and his 2 readers are Brent Stickley and Paul Messersmith-Lavin. Jeff.
All righty. Thank you, Andy. Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for being here. And I should probably turn the mic on. Yeah. Got a big mouth. So there we go. Okay, is that better? All right. Excellent. Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much, everybody, for being here. I am really excited about introducing this, you guys, and I hope when this is done, you'll be really excited about this mode of therapy. And like I say here, it's an exploration. So we're just kind of exploring this together. It's something that's very open to me. So I hope you're going to enjoy this. So let's start with quote. If we can click on the right place so we can move the clicker. And the crowd goes wild. Okay. Good quote from Big Al. Everything in life is vibration. Every sight, every sound, every smell, every taste, every thought, every feeling that we have at the very core is a vibrational frequency. Right? And that's so important to everything we do in our life, especially for us as healers. All right, so Acu-Resonance Therapy, or ART, that's what I like to call it. This is what I'm going to introduce to you today. And something that's very easy to learn, really effective, and there's so many great treatments on patients in the clinic. Basically, it's an approach to using sound and vibration in therapy to augment and to enhance our regular Chinese medicine type of treatment, based on the 5 tones of the Ling Shu, and especially on the 5 phase relationships to the points and the channels, and also to the instruments that we're using that I'm going to introduce to you. Okay, so where does this thing, ART, Acu-Resonance Therapy, come from? Well, this is just a term that I came up with in an attempt to try to more accurately describe what was going on with actually what we were doing. Normally, you hear this referred to as sound therapy in one form or another. But a lot of it is not something that deals with audible sound. You have a tuning fork somewhere on your foot, you're not going to actually hear it, feel it. So I thought that sound was really an accurate way to describe it. The Acu part, of course, because it's using acupuncture foundation. The points, the channels, the foundational theory is all there. Resonance, because it's the resonant frequency that's really the primary focus of this. And we'll talk a little bit more detail about it coming up. But that's what we're thinking about. It's just that relationship between vibration and resonance. And therapy for this, wonderfully therapeutic. And maybe we'll get a chance to a little audience participation today. And a little bit to that. So, yeah, so what's unique about ART? Well, most of the sound therapy systems that are out there currently being used are things that come from either a Vedic system or a Himalayan system. They work with the chakras of the body. They may work astrologically. There's all sorts of these other things going on. There are a few people who are working somewhat in the borders of Chinese medicine, but also sort of in one sense, some of them are doing things that I think are very complicated, and also bring in some of the outside influence. I want to stick very simply to the Chinese medicine framework. Okay, so it's accessible to anybody who's had any kind of Chinese medicine training. It's not like you have to go through a whole other sort of branch of knowledge to be able to use these things. All the same principles, it's very easily incorporated into just the regular Chinese medicine treatment. And why would somebody who's doing acupuncture now want to learn this, want to incorporate this? Well, very simply, there's a lot of advantages to it. It's really good for patients who are hypersensitive to needles. This is where I've used the clinic on several occasions. They endure a needle, but it's stressful for them. It's great for patients who are deficient, have some kind of weak constitution. Also, how many times have you been in a clinic and we ask a patient, well, did you eat anything before you came in today? And what is their answer? Oh, I had some coffee and a donut 2 hours ago. All right. So we may have somebody that's in a deficient condition. is not going to be in a place where they can really handle a lot of needles. So this is a possible substitute for that. It's just a great mode to add to your repertoire. Like the more we can do, the more people we can help, and the more situations. So it's a nice thing to have in our pocket in case we need it for anything. And of course, probably the most important one is it feels really good. And again, we have time here. I want to do a little audience participation. So some of you maybe haven't felt a tuning fork or a tuning bowl is about do that yourself. Okay, so let's get into the tools of the trade. Now, as I said, and some of these other sound therapy type of modalities that they use, there are all kinds of instruments that are used. I mean, everything you can possibly imagine. And a lot of those also could be incorporated into the system. But one of the tenets here that I wanted to come up with bringing this together was just simplicity. Keep it simple. Keep it to something that is practical to use in a clinical setting. You should not have to buy all kinds of equipment and bring in all these extra things that are good, but not necessarily necessary. So, tuning forks, first of all, think of them as kind of the yang of the system. Right? They're more ethereal, they're less substantial. They work more on a particular point or a particular channel, more of a smaller area. I think of them as sort of vibrational needles. All right. They're great for either warming up a point before you needle. All right. And they're also very good for just replacing the needle in certain situations. There's been quite a few times when I've used one on a point in a clinic and check the pulse, and well, that thing that you were feeling, the pulse has resolved itself just using the tuning fork. So they really work better sometimes than you think they're going to. Again, just the simplicity of that. A general strategy here is what I call just 1.14. Now, again, a lot of people that use these type of therapies, that use tuning forks, you'll see they'll take two tuning forks and they'll put it into one area, okay, which is perfectly good, perfectly fine, and it actually can work in the system as well. But what they're doing in that situation is they're concentrating on the frequencies of the two forks, that relationship, and then entering that vibration into the body. Where the philosophy of this is a little bit different, where we're thinking about the resonance of the fork in relationship to the resonance of the point or the channel that we're dealing with. So that's the relationship of vibration that thinking about more than the vibration between the forks. Again, this is unlimited, so you absolutely can use multiple forks on a particular point, but you're also, in that case, going to be thinking about what is the resonance frequency of that particular point or that particular channel. So our other tool, the main tool of the trade, is playing singing bowl. I love these things. They're wonderful. I really think some of them are alien life forms. They're so sensitive and so alive. And again, hopefully I'll get a chance to sing one of these for you in a bit. Great for tonifying, they're great for removing excess or pathogenic chi. And I like to think of them as kind of a vibrational moxie. They're used more larger areas, muscle sinew channel areas, larger parts of the body, going back, lower back. Sometimes multiple bowls can be used. Single bowls can be used. When you have multiple bowls, using more of that relationship, like I mentioned with the forks, where you have the relationship between the two resonances of the bowls, and then introducing that into the body. A single bowl is a little bit more unidirectional into a particular channel or a particular thing that you want to break up. And it gets into the idea of harmonic resonance or dissonance, how those have effect, which leads me to, whoops, that's the second one. Okay, we already talked about that. Into this one here. Okay, so let's talk for a second about two types of vibration, resonance and dissonance. Okay, so resonance is what happens when two or more frequencies are evenly mathematically related. Okay, so here's an example of this here. I have a chord here that is a C sharp, and I'm going to drop the microphone. Okay, so now that I've dropped the microphone, you've accomplished that. Okay, here we go. Okay. So we got C sharp here. And here's a G sharp. All right, so the ratio between a C sharp and a G sharp is a 1 to 1.5 ratio. So the vibrations of these, they sync up. They're not bashing into each other, they're complementary. All right, so hopefully this microphone will work. This time it works in practice. So let you hear a little bit of what this sounds like together. Everybody hear that? Yeah. Okay, you hear how those sounds like a chord, right? Which is actually what it is. In music, we call this a perfect fit. It's the second most resonant frequency. Right? The most resonant frequency would be the octave, which is a 1 to 2 ratio. All right. So the higher octave is just twice as fast as the lower. Well, if it wants to vibrate. There. You almost can't hear the higher one because they're complementary. Okay, so that's what resonance sounds like. The opposite of resonance is dissonance. All right, dissonance is when two or more frequencies are not closely mathematically or evenly, I should say, mathematically related. All right, dissonance breaks things apart, where resonance modifies, brings things together. Dissonance disperses. So let's hear a little dissonance here. I've got our C sharp. And this is a C. All right. So I don't know any musicians that are guests today, but that's like on a piano, you have two keys next to each other. All right, two keys right together. And the ratio of those is 1 to 1.067. So, and not a very even resonance. So let's see if we can hear what that sounds like there. Is that, yeah, uncomfortable feeling, right? Itchy feeling. All right. But that's kind of what you want when you want to break something up. When you want waves crashing into each other and crashing into tissue and crashing into our channels to get things moving. I always think of it as like a knot. You tie a knot and you can't get it loose. You might shake both sides of the knot and bang the knot on the table, get the vibration going, and try to loosen up that knot. So it's not unlike what we're trying to do with the dissonance waves there. Okay. The tones that we use, the notes that we use, are the 5 tones, the Wu Yin 5 tones of Ling Shu, chapter 64, and also in chapter 65. I'm going to attempt to read this in Chinese, so my apologies to anyone who is a proper Chinese speaker, but I'm going to do my best. So we got Bo Gao Yu, Tian Ji, Jue Yan, You He Ju Nei, Wu Yi Wu Wu, Yuan Yi Ying Zhi, which is, Bo Gao says, between heaven and earth, the 6 enclosures, nothing is inseparable from the 5. Man also resonates with them. Okay. And these are some really neat pictures here of these bells from Zheng people, which were a vassal state of Zhou back during the Warring States period. These were found in 1978. And some acoustic readings were measured on this. This is how we figured out what tones, what notes they were actually using back then. So the readings and the measurements and things that they did on these enormous bells, you can see the size of these things is huge, gave us the notes that were really used when all of this was developed. And that's the gong, the earth tone, is analogous to our modern F sharp, the shan, the middle, G sharp, the U, water, D sharp, the Jue, wood, A sharp, and the Jue, or sometimes pronounced Jing, is the fire, or the C sharp. Okay, so this is analogous to the black we done here. All right, but the difference is these are in what in Chinese we call 12语 tuning, which just literally means 12 tones. So it's a 12-tone system, even tempered system, basically like what we have now, but the actual vibrational tuning of the notes is lower. in modern America, we tune to what's called A440 tuning, which means the A, the low middle C, vibrates at 440 hertz. The tuning that we're talking about, which is also called Pythagorean tuning, the one that also talks a lot about this, even though it dates back to Mesopotamia way before him. But he's taken credit for this tuning, more or less. So the A will vibrate at 432 hertz. And the reason this is the vibration of nature. This is what is measured in the vibrations of the stars, the vibrations of the weather, of the seasons, of everything that was being measured around you, conformed to this system of A432 tuning. So that's what we're using. And even these, when I bought these, they were all in modern A44 tuning, so I had to go through each of them and retune them to this other tuning, so that they would work in the system the way that nature intended. Okay, so just a little bit about, in general, using tuning forks. They can be used, of course, anywhere on the body. It's really nice. But I found in using them with patients and with fellow students in classes that they work really well on the transport points. Okay, and for those of our guests here that are not in the Chinese medicine, these are points that are in our arms and the bottom of our legs and so forth, that have these 5-phase, the 5-element relationships, as well as with other things. And they work really well on that when you take into consideration the tone of work and the tone of the transport point, as well as the channel. So what I wanted to do here, this is just a real little example of a possibility using large intestinal leaven here as a way of suspending heat, and two ways of thinking about it. So this point here is what we call the husky point, water point. It's on Earth, and it's a metal channel. So we have water, we have Earth, we have metal. And so we would use, or I would use in this situation, a wood tone, a sharp wood tone. When you look at this, let's go back to cycle here. When you look at the cycle, these are the various cycles. You're going to have a pointer. Yeah. Oh wow, there you go. Okay, so if I'm using a wood fork, what that's going to do is wood is what we call the child of water. So when by dispersing this wood, it's going to make room for that water to flow into the wood. Now, while the water is flowing into the wood, that's what's going to be drawing and continuing that cycle, drawing the metal into the water, which will turn and draw the earth into the metal, bringing the fire down, draining that fire, which is what was our purpose of doing that in the first place. Okay, so that's one way of looking at it. The other way, which is the exact same result, but it's a different way of looking at it, which I have listed up right here, is the fire is drained by its child, the one next to it. I'll go after on the slide in a second. By earth, which is plowed into by wood. So you have wood, which is it says here destroyed. That's not really the way to think of it, but it's controlling, let's say, it controls earth, just as you imagine a wooden plow would plow through the earth to control it. So by breaking up earth with wood, it leaves space for that fire to drain along the cycle. Everything's going in this clockwise cycle. So getting rid of too much here will allow any excesses here to drain through there. And the whole goal of all of this is just to keep that circle moving. All right. Okay, so singing bowls. A singing bowl closing, this is one of my favorite things to do. I do this all the time in the clinic. Even when there's not a lot of time. The only thing with tuning forks is they can take a little bit more time in the clinic. You have to hit them multiple times on a particular patient, and it is a little time consuming if you're in a hurry. The nice thing about doing this bowl closing is it doesn't take a lot of time. It's a great way just to send the patient home centered, contained, and just in a really nice space. So the procedure of that is you start the bowl singing down at Bubbling Spring Kitty 1, which for those of you who don't know is the bottom of the foot. Down the ball, bottom of the foot. We sing the bowl, which I'm going to show you how to work in just a minute. You run it up the body, over that center line, over our wind channel, up to the top over D20, and back. Now the amazing thing about using this is the bowl that I use for this. This is the bowl that's on the C-sharp heart tone. And this is one of the most amazing bowls I've ever come across. As it says here, this bowl, all bowls act in almost like a sonar type of a wave. You have waves that come up and they bounce back, and you can feel what's coming back from that patient. Once you get used to how that feels, it feels different than it's bouncing off of muscle. It feels different than it's bouncing off of sinew, harder tissue. You can get a feel for that. The amazing thing is, even though I'm doing my absolute best to consistently show how I'm rubbing this, and since we're talking about it, let's go ahead and do it. And we'll report afterwards. So, this is the same. We're trying to keep the feedback from happening on the microphone. Do this higher harmonic. Really interesting. I didn't plan to do that. It just did. Which means I've got something in here that needs to be drawn out. It's drawing on accents from me as we speak. So even I can stop this. I'm going to do my best right on the lower octave. See if I can do it. It's working a little better now, but you can still hear that higher octave. You still hear that higher harmonic coming out. And still, see, I can't control it to do what it wants to do. No, it's freaky. It is. I'm trying so hard to keep that from going up, and it won't do it. So the ball knows what the body needs. Don't ask me how. That's a whole other investigation that maybe we get into at some point. But yeah, the ball knows. All right. And these are a couple of potential protocols that I go into great detail with in my Capstone of using multiple bowls based on the 5-phase relationship, based on their proximity to the channels, to phases. I have not had an opportunity to try this out on a patient because I have not been able to find 5 bowls yet that I can afford that are in these samples. That's the only drawback of bowls. Some of them can be fairly expensive, but all 3 of these I got on Amazon, and they're all great. So there is hope out there for all of us when it comes to getting nice bowls. But the 5 and 10 bowl potential protocols here. And before we go on, is there anybody that's here today that has never felt a tuning fork on their arm or their hand or anything, or would like to try one? Can I get any volunteers or guests here? Would somebody like to see what a tuning fork feels like? No pressure. You know what? Thank you. Okay, so open your head up. What are you gonna do? I'm gonna use the point right here. So I'll try to set it. All right. And we're gonna use a fire pulse. We're just gonna move things. Interesting. Can't find any vision. Okay. How's that feel? Yeah. This is on a point that should be nice and qualified. All right. Yeah. You want to try? How's that feel? Is your whole hand vibrating a little better? Yeah.
Yeah, we're actually a little bit out of time.
Are we a little bit out of time? All right, let's close it down. Okay, let's look at all of these up here. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm gonna leave the table up here, so after we're all done, feel free to come up here and play and hit the bells and arms and do whatever it is that you want to do. So yeah, let's close this puppy up here. All right, so just in closing, I just want to say that the potential protocols for this are endless, potential applications are endless. And I encourage everyone that's in this field to look into this, to play and have a good time and enjoy it. Because after all, everything in life is vibration. Okay, so thank you all for your attention.
Thanks, Jeff. That was fascinating. I want to see if Jeff's chair, Ken
Out there
Blavatsky,
somewhere.
has questions. Ken?
Well, there he is.
Well, congratulations, Jeff. You put a lot of hard work into this. So I have a question. You've been in clinic and you've been using sound therapy with patients. What stands out for you as far as the number one thing that you've seen so far? Is there a case where you have seen this work in a different and a really spectacular way?
Several, actually, especially with that, with my heart bowl here on that closing. One in particular comes to mind, well, two actually. One lady I used this on one time, and I went through the whole closing, and as I was going over her torso, it was jumping to that higher harmonic. And I hadn't said anything to her. This is when I was still figuring out about the higher harmonic, lower harmonics, and what's going on with that. And so as we're coming down, I finished and I asked her, well, how are you feeling? How did it go? And she said, as you passed over my heart, I felt like something had drilled into my chest and was pulling things out, which is exactly what I was theoretically thinking about that high tone was doing. So without any sort of prompting or anything else, she reinforced exactly what I thought was happening. And so that was really spectacular. I had another patient, that same just simple protocol, and we finished through it. And in her case, it happened to stay in the lower harmonic the whole time. So I said, okay, she's just needing things. And when it was done, she told me she was having visions. She was seeing colors, and it was a spectacular, almost out of body experience for her. And then she just felt so good, and she just had just like tears coming out of her eyes. It was one of the nicest things that she came back consistently and wanted that treatment at the end every time. So yeah, it was really, really gratifying and very validating for what I thought was happening, what I theorized was happening, and then getting those feedback from specific patients saying that's exactly what. So yes.
Thanks, Ken. Brent, do you have any questions? I'll make it very brief. How did you retune the bowl?
Bowls have been a dice roll. So this is what I'm doing with the bowl. I have a new one coming next week that I'm rolling the dice on too. When you get these, I found a good dealer on Amazon called Falamart. I think they're Nepalese. And I know that they're tuning the bowls to A440, right? So A440 being a higher pitch than what I'm looking for. And they're calling all their bowls, like for example, they call this a C bowl. So I said, okay, well, if they say it's a C in A440, there's a chance that in my tuning, in Pythagorean tuning, it's going to actually be a C sharp. So I rolled the dice, and it's spot on C sharp. I mean, like frighteningly so. This one too, this is a metal element. And from the same place, and they said it's a G, and it hit the G sharp. So I ordered one that they say is a D, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed that the D sharp. They need a water tone so we can have that hard water access going in the clinical thing. The tuning forks are a lot easier. The tuning fork set, often comes with an Allen wrench for the weights. So what I did is I loosened the weights, and I sat there with my tutor, 32, and tweaked each one of them. It's pretty painstaking because a tiny difference makes all the difference in the tuning of it, and just tune each one to that 5-note pentatonic scale, just little by little. But yeah, that's how it works.
Thanks, Brent. Jeff, is Paul?
I
present for us
don't
today?
think so. No, I think Paul was engaged today.
Okay. Well, on that note,
On that-
congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.